Hi, welcome to this part of my review featuring the first volume of Big Sword, Grapes and Groves. If you haven't seen the other parts of my review, featuring this recently released zine for the Dungeon Crawl Classics role-playing game, please check out the playlist in the description below. This time we are going to talk about the Revenant, the Dhampir, and the Vampire. Let's start with the Revenant. Under exceptional circumstances, a death is so cruel that though the victim's body dies, their desire for vengeance lives on. Such beings are known as Revenants, and they stop at nothing to avenge their own deaths. After a character is permanently killed, most often by failing their check for recovering the body, they might rise as a Revenant to seek vengeance on their killer. After dying, any character of level 1 or above may roll percentile dice and add their level. If the result is above a certain number, they may rise as a Revenant. You have a table indicating different modifiers that may affect this roll. And there could even be exceptionally powerful magical artifacts or effects that could transform a character into a Revenant. When you become such a creature, you have undead traits. That is, you can be turned by clerics, you are immune to poison, disease, you don't need to eat, drink, breathe, etc. And you are focused completely on killing the creature that ended your life, or maybe several of them. It all depends on the circumstances of your demise. The vengeful energy that sustains Revenants doesn't last forever. If a number of random weeks pass before the Revenant slays their killer, they become too weak to remain on the mortal plane, and their spirit remains restless for eternity. When a Revenant rises, they choose one nemesis power, or you can randomly determine such a power. For example, maybe now you roll all spell checks with an improved die. Or maybe all of your armor class and saves are increased, and you are immune to critical hits. These are just a couple of examples. You are also encouraged to come up with your own Revenant powers. When it comes to your appearance, this can also be determined randomly. Maybe you appear translucent and ghostly. Or perhaps you are reborn in another body. You are unrecognizable, except that your target sees you as a rotting corpse. Then we have the Dhampir. In time immemorial, the prime vampire waged war with a god. The god was indeed a mightiful foe, but the forces of vampirism plied their trickery and unholy magics, and so prevailed. When the god was cornered, it used the last of its strength to fix a clever curse. The god created Dhampirs, beings who used the strength of vampires against them. The god was killed, its blood imbibed, and its name forgotten. But vampirism remains, and all vampires that dare lay with a mortal give rise to Dhampirs, whose gifts of vampire hunting are destined to destroy the prime vampire. A character can either begin as a Dhampir, or can become one throughout the course of play. You can even determine your origin randomly. Perhaps one of your parents was a vampire, or maybe you were born under a falling star. At level 1, a Dhampir gains random powers until their powers points add up to 8, 9, or 10. If a power would increase the Dhampir's total points above 10, you must reroll. Then do the same for weaknesses. As you level up, you may increase this number of points. When it comes to your powers and weaknesses, a Dhampiric power and weakness is identical to its vampire equivalent, except where noted in the Dhampir tables. A Dhampir knows the nature of all of their powers and weaknesses. In addition to this, you also obtain a nemesis power. Perhaps you can smell vampires. You can tell the direction of any vampire within 60 feet. You can also smell other Dhampirs, which have a distinct scent. Or maybe, upon seeing a vampire, you immediately learn one of its weaknesses. There are many other features when it comes to these nemesis powers. Now, when it comes to specific Dhampir powers, you have things such as enhanced strength, flight, hypnosis, lunar energy, infravision. When it comes to weaknesses, you have things such as bloodlust, fire, no shadow, no reflection. And these are just a few of them. I will talk about some of them in greater detail in a few moments. You can also randomly determine the dhampir appearance. Maybe you have blacker than black hair, or maybe your skin is pale white, or you have gray skin. Next we have the vampire. Vampires are the unholy pinnacle of undeath. As walking corpses, they never succumb to age. With access to such lifespans as men can only dream of, vampires have time to practice their dark arts to perfection. But power as great as this always comes with a cost: bloodlust. Humans often wonder why vampires don't just go without blood, but for a vampire to refute blood is for a human to refute air. In game terms, each vampire is unique. You have tables to randomly generate a vampire, or select as you consider appropriate. When it comes to hit dice, you are extremely hardy, very sturdy. When it comes to damage reduction, the vampire's undead resilience reduces all damage it takes by a number of points as shown in the vampire age table. Attacks utilizing any of the vampire's weaknesses ignore this reduction. As expected, the vampire is pretty decent in a fight. When it comes to actions, vampires use their action dice to attack, bite, or use powers. When it comes to vampiric powers, you normally surpass the dhampir, but you also have many other weaknesses when compared to that hybrid. And of course, you have undead traits. You have good initiative, movement, and saving throws. The vampire has unique weapons such as claws, the arcane blast, or the unholy gaze. When it comes to vampire powers, you have things such as coffin regeneration. After resting in its coffin, the vampire heals all damage. You also have the dragon martial power. The vampire gains 1 dragon martial power, but you must reroll any inapplicable powers. You also have enhanced strength. The vampire's strength bonus is increased by +2. This also increases its attack and damage by +2 accordingly. Also, the vampire can wield a 2-handed weapon in one hand. And there are many other powers such as necromancy, paralytic touch, plague, shapeshift, telekinesis. When it comes to vampire weaknesses, you have things such as burial. If the vampire is completely buried under soil, it instantly dies. There is invitation. The vampire takes 5 d12s of damage if it enters a building without permission. There is also sunlight. For every round in sunlight, the vampire takes 1d12 of damage. And there are many other weaknesses such as artifacts, holy symbols, holy water, stake of course. You can also randomly determine many things about the vampire. Its origin, perhaps. It was turned after being targeted with a powerful curse. Or maybe it was resurrected after a cat jumped over their corpse. When it comes to appearance, maybe you look feral, perhaps sexy, maybe demonic, or just a bit slimy. When it comes to motivation, maybe you are driven by knowledge, perhaps power, or maybe you seek solitude. You can also randomly determine the vampire's alignment. When it comes to finding the weakness of a vampire, perhaps a servant of the vampire tells you. They've overheard much, but are reluctant to share out of fear. Or maybe the vampire is weak to what killed them back when they were mortal. So a little bit of research will reveal these truths. And this concludes this part of the review. In the next part, we are going to talk about the Prime Vampire Patron and the Vow of the Vampire Hex Scroll. In addition, I will also talk about the Bestiary and the Tree Folk occupations, and I will give you my final thoughts on this Volume 1. I think that these classes or templates are amazing. When it comes to the Revenant, the player characters now have a small chance to come back from the grave and take revenge upon their killers. Concerning the dhampir, this is a very cool class. I think that it's fairly powerful, but not too much, and it gives you a chance to play as a Vampire Hunter, the character. Concerning the vampire, this is a very powerful character class. Definitely more suitable for an enemy, but because of its weaknesses, I think that a clever judge may put some difficult enemies, perhaps hazards that target those weaknesses. So you could include a vampire in the party, and things will still be challenging. Thank you for watching this part of the review, and thank you for your likes and your comments. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that are going the extra mile to support the channel. If anyone else wishes to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you, and see you later.